Just take pictures of one.
Well, all right. I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch, and we have a short period of time left, so if we can stay awake, we have a very dynamic speaker. It is my pleasure I get the opportunity to introduce to you Dr. Brian Chad Starks. Dr. Starks, he is a professional at specifically diversity, inclusion, equity, and today he's going to talk to us about the implicit biases that we all face today in today's time. Dr. Chad Starks, he has a background that shows that not only is he educated, he has the heart, and also he has the passion for his work. His education started at Wofford College. At Wofford College, he achieved his bachelor's degree. He went on to achieve his master's degree here at the University of South Carolina, where he also achieved some certificates. He went on to get his doctorate at the University of Delaware, where he holds his doctorate position. As far as his heart, Dr. Chad Starks has done a lot of things that shows his heart and passion that he has for the job that he does. He has served as an associate director on the NASA team of Delaware. On this team, he actually ensures that the team has a very mixed, diverse group of candidates on this team. He also received an award given by the University of Delaware to where he implemented programs to where it significantly changed the dynamics and the culture on campus. His heart was also shown to where in Lynchburg, Virginia, the branch of the NAACP gave Dr. Chad Starks the Civil Rights Award. As far as his actions are concerned, they continue to prove what Dr. Chad Starks is and what he represents on a daily basis. Dr. Chad Starks, all the way from his time at Wofford University, where he not only was he an All-American on the football field, but he was also enshrined into the Hall of Fame at Wofford University. He has a long list, so I'm going to abbreviate it a little bit. He also served on the faculty for 3 universities, most recently Lynchburg College, Delaware State University, and also Benedict College here in Columbia, South Carolina. Dr. Chad Starks, he has started an organization to where he serves the disadvantaged high school kids, and he calls this I Know I Can Institute. Dr. Chad Starks, he continues to travel over the United States with his organization, BCS Consulting, to where he informs not only businessmen, not only government officials, but also people such as ourselves on a day-to-day basis about how important understanding diversity, inclusion, and also the implicit biases. It's without further ado that I introduce you the dynamic speaker, Dr. Brian Chad Starks. Good afternoon. Oftentimes when I hear those bios read out, I always ask, are they really talking about me, or are they talking about someone that I've been dreaming about? I'm born and raised here in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm a proud product of the public educational school system. I want that to be expounded upon and understood and appreciated as I have this conversation with you all today. Let me first say my appreciation and gratitude for the invitation to come share what I call a purposeful journey of life that I've been on since inception in January 16, 1972. I have been blessed with a number of different skills and abilities that I have been able to capture in an informal and a formal way of what I call real education. What we're going to do today is have a conversation. Every time I get a microphone, every time I get an audience that has ears, I make a promise and commitment to myself and them that I am going to have an honest and transparent conversation.
So I want to say thank you all, Edward Jones, for inviting me into your home, to your space. As a Southerner, I know how important that is when you enter into the dwelling of someone else, your neighbor. I especially want to thank Mr. Bird and his team. And I also want to thank you all for your due diligence and the steps that it took in order for me to get here. That's actually a part of who I am and what I believe in, and you have to earn everything, and I think I have been in position to earn the right to have some of these conversations today. So when we hear these terms, we hear a lot of things that we're talking about. We're talking about implicit bias. We're going to put that on the background a little bit. I want to expand a little bit about my journey. The proud public school education is one that allows one to have both of those conversations, right? So when we're talking two conversations, we're talking an informal education and a formal education. We all sit in classrooms with teachers that have a level of expertise, administrators, coaches, guidance counselors, custodial staff. But there's something that I am very fortunate of that I want us to take full advantage of is, as a criminologist, I'm a social scientist, and every day when I walk outside, that is my lab. That is an organic lab that I cannot control. I am not a STEM, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a chemist. That organic lab that we have to interact with each other based on the way we've been cultivated into society is so fortunate to get so many informal educational opportunities to learn from. What I'm going to bring you today is some of those conversations, some of those talking points that I hope you leave with today, that you see that lab in a different lens based on your individual upbringing, that grandmama, granddaddy, great-grandmama, auntie, boo-boo, Willie, that gave us, that created the foundation of morality or what's good and what's bad, that may not be applicable today in society. I'm going to challenge you to think about some of those lessons, some of those conversations that they had with you. And I want you to do a self-reflection today to see how well they prepared you to create a different way of thinking, a different way of being. Because we're going to appreciate how much strength we have in difference. We are in a country that categorizes everything. I mean everything. Race, class, gender, socioeconomic status, zip codes, and everything has a backstory to it. It always amazes me when we look at our Census Bureau and we look at the impact and all that information that is grounded in 5 numbers. Those 5 numbers are the zip codes where you live right now. And you can look at those zip codes and you can see the public education system. You can see unemployment rates. You can see poverty or lack thereof. You can see how much funds your local government are investing to create, and I mean create, some of the barriers that we've been talking about in this country for centuries. I cannot apologize for what we have organized in a structured way to create inequality. As a social scientist, just like a medical doctor, it's my responsibility to diagnose structural inequality and go back into my lab and come up with a diagnosis and prescribe some medicine that's going to change what we've been discussing forever. I can't apologize that we continue to talk about mass incarceration. I can't apologize that we have strained relationships between some communities and law enforcement. I can't apologize that the first 4 minutes of every 30-minute news segment that you sit down to watch, that we continue to perpetuate fear by putting the worst information out in a country that can choose to highlight assets. See, unconsciously, what we've done is we've gotten very comfortable being okay with struggle love. That most of us are mothers, wives, fathers, partners, financial advisors, criminologists, volunteers. And we get this thing called a clock that we get structured into doing our own lifestyles, right? We get to doing our own lifestyles, and these things that happen, they're kind of like, moments in time that we almost expect these issues to be a part of our normal day. As a critical criminologist, I examine I examine systems. And I'm very critical about systems, and I started off looking at our prison systems. And a great philosopher says, you can tell the state of a nation by how many people we incarcerate. We are the #1 incarcerated nation in the world. And we all know from a population perspective, 100,000 per capita is how we always quantify people. We aren't even close to having the most bodies, physical bodies, in the world. So that tells me that there's something going on. There's a systemic issue that we are struggling with in this nation on why we choose punitive measures over rehabilitation measures or that prevention measure. Do y'all realize that we put 70% of our federal funds in responding to issues? 20% goes into intervention, and guess what goes into prevention? See, unconsciously, we aren't going to have these conversations, right? Why do you think only 10% goes into prevention? Wow. And you can't measure it. You can't measure what didn't happen. For some reason, the National Enquirer, it says more papers than the New York Times. We're cultivated to enjoy some of the struggle, y'all. We're cultivated to appreciate someone else's downfall. I know it's tough to hear, but we do. We're commodities, and we make a whole lot of money off people. From the justice system, public education, healthcare, higher education. I'm a graduate of Wofford College. I have conversations all the time at Wofford College. I go back, I consult. We're trying to create different ways of thinking. We want to bring in more minorities that just don't play football. Wofford College is the only one. It's a microcosm of the world, of society. Where does Edward Jones sit? I had an opportunity to do some research before I got here, and I love this conversation around the WINGS program, right? The fact that you have not only had the conversation and recognized that there's a deficit with women participating and being financial advisors, you put money where your mouth is. I love the initiative. I love the initiative around the Bridge program. That tells me that consciously people are making an effort to create a more harmonious society. Why is that important? Do you realize that 85% of the people that get incarcerated in this nation are coming home one day? I mean, it's easy to do the political identity from a conservative ideology to liberal to Democrat. Those are nice terms, but at the end of the day, humanity and society has to recognize that we can't keep locking everybody up. If you have a conversation around public school education, and I'm not sure how many of you all remember the zero tolerance policy that we initiated in response to the school shootings in the early 90s. It's a great idea. We all want to protect our babies, don't we? What happened to that policy when it comes to implementation? Somehow or another, we lose some of our high standards whenever we're trying to protect our babies when we're implementing policies on the ground. So that zero tolerance policy was a non-violent approach to loving our babies and protecting them. But what happened is we created this conversation around the school to prison pipeline. Is that instead of our teachers, administrators, coaches, and guidance counselors feeling comfortable to deflect or decrease conflict, we turn to whom to handle issues in our classroom? Law enforcement. So because unconsciously, that was the right thing to do, because we put all these people in the same conversation in order to protect our babies. President Clinton did the same thing with community-oriented policing. He said the answer to crime would be flooding our communities with more law enforcement officers, right? Because we want to go back to where law enforcement officers were grabbing cats out of trees, walking up to nice old ladies' homes and delivering the milk that's been sitting on the porch for an hour. When we started law enforcement, right, the conversation was around if you work an 8-hour shift and you had 0 arrests that day, guess what your supervisor said? great job. You work an 8-hour shift now, you don't arrest anybody, or you're a state trooper and you don't write one speeding ticket, guess what your supervisor said? This might not be for you. It's amazing these things that we every day are engaged in that contribute to our youth, contribute to our identities. We unconsciously have lost our accountability and making sure that everyone is accountable. I want us all to be accountable, so we got to have some conversations today around 4 constructs that I use in all of my work. Everything that I do. I appreciate the nice words that you said. These 4 constructs, if you could choose one of the leave behinds on your desk, you can turn them over, please. These 4 constructs are identity, culture, diversity, and respect. And I've been using these in training law enforcement officers on implicit bias, partnering with local governments to think differently about what their city looks like around crime, education, unemployment, and poverty. I've been having these conversations now for over 20 years, right? And the identity conversation is how one sees his or herself as a unique person. But also, remember I said 2 forms of education, but also how society sees them. And sometimes those identities can be based in bias, stereotypes, and labels. Some of those 3 are good and some of those are bad. The issue with us not understanding that there needs to be 2 conversations around every conversation, every subject, is that we may mislead some people in thinking that certain identities are going to be received and accepted in the world. For example, right now we are having an issue with suicide with babies, 12, 13-year-olds. Fastest growing suicide rates. Can anybody in the room tell me why? Social media, cyberbullying. Good. All the stuff the media tells us.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, because we refuse to tell them that if you internally feel that you was born with one gender identity and you are trying to mask yourself in a world that isn't accepting of physically looking one way but feeling different, then you internalize, and those consequences to that, those kids are going home not feeling worthy of life. I'm not that tough. I'm not that tough to tell someone that you have to look and think like me or you don't deserve to be on this earth. For some reason, the identity, why would I even attempt to take away from you what you see every day in the mirror? We keep pushing these terms in the social science world and political world called colorblind, post-racial society. What y'all see right now when it comes to color? What do you see? Black. What is wrong with seeing what you see? Beautiful. It is not racism for acknowledging one's race. It's racism when you use it against them. I love my mama. I love my grandma. Y'all don't want me to love what I see in the mirror every day? You rather me not like myself, which means if I don't like myself, how can I even attempt to like you? But we cultivate each other into this hypocrisy of making me feel comfortable about who you are. I don't know how much education. I've been to school for 22 years, and I've been in a lot of spaces where I've been the only one. And I mean the only one that look like me, that think like me, the only one that has the education that I do. How much time do you want me to spend trying to figure out how to make you okay with me? Can you self-reflect on why you are bothered by my presence? Why would a 10-year-old kid that's identifying themselves as something different than what you think they should be, why does that bother you? Why would you ask a kid to own that and cry and not like themselves? I love me, and I wouldn't ask you to change who you are, what you look like, to make me feel comfortable. My ego is not that large. We got to take a different approach and be thinking about the value of what identity is to that individual. And I mean, parents, you have to hold some accountability of what you share with your children before they leave home. Hey, Chad, if you grow your hair like that and you from Columbia, South Carolina, you might not be able to get a job. What you mean? I thought it was supposed to be about what's in my head. That's what y'all told me. You told me if I go to school and get a good education that I'd be all right. Ain't nobody come train me on no job interview skills about my hair. My wife of college came down and recruit me in PC and the Citadel and East TSU. You think they was focusing on my hair? Who's going to tell that kid those honest conversations? Because that bias that we're talking about that's implicit, it becomes whether or not you live in a different zip code. I thought I was supposed to get a master's in sociology, a master's certificate in alcohol and drug studies, a master's in criminal justice, a PhD in criminology. I thought I could go save the world. So you mean to tell me after all that, the way I wear my hair is going to prevent me from teaching your kids? What do you want me to do? How boring would it be if we all looked alike, wore our hair alike, dressed alike, talked alike? Oh my gosh. Can we get to the point where we can sit down and go to lunch with somebody else and appreciate? I know nothing about what it's like to be you, but I sure am willing to learn. Because when I teach kids about a toolbox, right? We have a toolbox of life. Remember, my lab is there. A carpenter doesn't use a hammer for every job. Does he or she? Now, why can't we have a toolbox for life? Why don't you want to know what it's like with me wearing my hair when I walk into a room and I feel good about it? I want to know what it's like being you. Because we're going to live together as neighbors. We're going to work together as colleagues. I am a nerd for information, but for some reason we get cultivated to think you get a couple of letters, you get a couple of dollars, I know everything. And they tell you that when you get a PhD. I love my advisors. As I was writing my teaching philosophy, my pedagogy, I said, I can't wait to get in front of students because this exchange of information is going to benefit everybody and I get to learn from you. You know what she told me? Take that out. I said, take what out? She said, take that part out about learning from students. I said, why would I take that out? She said, because you got a PhD. Society says that you now know everything. You're an expert. Now, there's some confirmation bias, right? I don't know if I'd have been in this room if I wouldn't have been Dr. Starks. Especially with his hair. But somebody told me those honest conversations when I was on this journey and making a decision about my identity and how that could increase my self-esteem and how it could love me. So I turned the deck on his head. I said, if they're going to worry about what's on my head, then I'm going to read every book I can get my hands on. So I don't get to walk in Walmart and someone assumes that I got, 22 years of schooling and a PhD, and people actually invite me to come talk about issues that affect us all. That's where those implicit biases come in that we all have. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun treating people. I would walk past them all the time when I got my jeans on, my hoodie, and my Timberland boots. But as soon as they stop to engage and open their mouth, I let Dr. Starks loose. My responsibility and accountability is to everyone that's in society. So I'm fortunate enough to represent some of those identities that we have alienated and marginalized for a long time. I'm also fortunate enough to get the privileges that come with having this PhD I have. Y'all got privileges, don't you? We all have privileges. What's the issue in the world with privilege? Why would I take away from you what you earned that comes with that isn't going to hurt anyone? Problem with us in society is that we use privileges to disadvantage others. I don't want to use my degrees for that. I don't want to sit in a room all the time and teach 2 classes a week and understand the National Institute of Justice, Department of Justice are putting out $5 million grants to study communities that I got something to do to change the structure. It just wasn't okay for me to write a journal article or write a book chapter so I could increase my pedigree in the field. I wanted to get on the floor and do something that's going to make some change. And I mean structural change. I mean generational change. I mean stand up in front of a 10-year-old kid that we know is suffering from it and say, man, I want to be like you. And I can say, no, you don't want to be like me. I want you to be like you. I'm going to teach you how to get some of this stuff so you can love you and be like you. Stop telling y'all kids that role models are on TV too. Stop it. I don't know what Michael Jordan eats. I don't know Michael Jordan values. You don't know what Dr. Starks eat. Role model is a cuss word in my home. If me or her mother didn't do the job to the person that she's looking up to, then I got to look in the mirror and say I failed some kind of way. I'm not serving our babies up to this crazy world that we call society. We just talked about why these issues continue to persist. Why would I send a baby out there without being informed? If you don't hurt them now with this information and be honest with them, somebody's going to hurt them soon. That's my responsibility. I'm working with this family when I first moved to Greenville. And I'm hoping to work with this family, the white couple. Oh, y'all know like white and black are okay words to use. You know, black is no longer the bad 8-ball, and the white there's no little white lies anymore. Y'all know that, right? See how those semantics have been used to unconsciously create fear to keep us separated. So this whole adoption, who's choosing to adopt brown, black babies and resources is so attractive to me, right? Because I need to understand the thinking of it. And as I was having a conversation in Greenville one day, this mother comes up to me. She said, we just adopted this kid from Congo. Dr. Starks, we don't want him to lose his identity. But the best schools in Greenville County are predominantly white. How can we send a young black kid into a predominantly white educational environment and he or she doesn't lose their identity? I was like, oh my God, that's like a softball. For some reason, we get uncomfortable with these conversations. And I'm like, at quality education, here's what we got to think about. Edward Jones, and I've been reading about what inclusive environments mean to you. I want that kid to get the best education. Why wouldn't I want that young kid to go get what he or she deserves from a resource infrastructure? We got community organizations, we got work groups, we got churches. We can put our arms around that young man in the community to get that second form of education that I'm talking about, the informal piece. I went to one of the best colleges in the state of South Carolina. It's predominantly what? Look how many tools that I received to be able to be comfortable standing up to people that don't look like me, to have conversations. Tell that young man about who he is, where he's from, love himself, and also teach him about the environment that he will be entering. Baby, you're gonna face some racism. I'm sorry. You're gonna face some racism. You're going to face some words. You're going to hear some things that might make you a little uncomfortable. I'm going to need you to come home so we can talk about it to make sure that we address these issues and you don't need to blame yourself. When I talk to my kids that are in the Department of Juvenile Justice, they didn't build the first penitentiary because you were born. The Quakers did it in the 19th century early. And it wasn't full of black men then either. For some reason, having these conversations, we have lost our responsibility to be transparent. What I look like as an educator or a parent lying to the youth. Stop. Tell them the reality of what society has for them and tell them that we can teach you how to navigate around it in order to love yourself, be accountable to give to others, and be successful at your craft. Culture is the second term, the second construct that we use. Heritage, traditions, style of dress, language, communication, music. I can't love that. I can't love the cookouts that we have with the 140 cousins I got from Piney Grove Road. I can't love the fact that I might be the only one that went to get a formal education, but I still go back. I can't go share with them some of those cultural experiences that have been appropriate because of my education and my professional career, because they like hearing about what's like over there. You don't know what's over there until you've been over there. Someone can share with you what it's like. How exciting it is to learn. I heard the salsa music, and everyone got excited. How excited it is to learn about where that comes from, where it originated. Do you know there's over 5 million different cultures in the world? I was like, man, I got a lot of reading to do. So now there's some list of things that I want to do. I want to go to different places. I want to be able, as a messenger, to go get some of those tools in my toolbox and come back and bring them back. I call myself a sponge of life, right? Water is information. You want to soak up as much knowledge and information so you can wring it out on others. I've been standing in front of judges, in front of pastors, in front of crack dealers, in front of crack users, in front of mamas, daddies, green, rabbits, frogs. It doesn't matter what door. Why not walk through it? You read studies in public school all the time about removing the good kids away from the bad kids, or the bad kids away from the good kids. Y'all live in a society where bad doesn't exist. Please tell me that unicorns are for real. And what we don't share is that the research says that an inclusive and a diverse way of thinking, you need some of those kids in the classroom with your good kids. All that is about fear. You know, crime doesn't happen every 30 seconds, right? It doesn't. I taught a course called Outside the Comfort Zone of the Classroom. A lot of my colloquial statements that I use is that we have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. We have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. And that information, that transparent conversation is what gets most of us uncomfortable. Then you can pour in information and education that will reduce the fear. Now I'm empowered because I know more. Now I'm empowered to be comfortable having an interaction and admitting that I don't know something. If you don't know it, build a relationship, trust, and rapport with each other and say, hey, how can we get more people of color involved with Edward Jones? That is a fair question. That's an honest question. That's a high ethic of care. That's accountability and saying, well, I'm not going over there. You're missing out on a whole lot of money. At the University of Delaware as a graduate student, we took University of Delaware students into the worst neighborhood defined by social scientists in Wilmington, Delaware. I mean, drug infested, crime infested. Everything that I'm teaching them in the book, we take them out in the community, right? We created a quadrant of where you should walk, walking in fours. Oh, y'all know if you send white girls out into the hood, they're there for 2 things, right? What's the 2 things? Drugs or wow, you tough. Drugs / prostitution, or they're social workers that come in and save the day. social workers, right? You know the liberal art, come on, stop playing, Thomas, you know. Want to save the world. So we put yellow hats on our students, all of our students, so they could be identified differently. And what was that going to do to a community that has been given a lack of resources in education so they don't have to fear people that don't look like them? Because that's why they are afraid. Because we have cultivated the thinking that we shouldn't trust her off her physical attributes. So we put yellow hats on our kids to do what? Disidentify with that identity, but also to do what? Make them people comfortable. It's their home. It's their neighborhood. I'm there to teach a class and do a study. We're going to be gone. It's going to be another semester, and they still going to be living in them constructs that I just defined for you. Please respect where you go. Show some deference. Please respect where you go. But the other thing that we did is we understand that kids, they aren't damaged until they get around adults like us. At the end of the day, they just want to have fun. So I said we should use sports, sidewalk chalk, basketballs, jump ropes, and watch our race and gender won't matter. It will not matter to that 6-year-old kid. And guess what happened? Those kids started flocking around those University of Delaware students. Flocking around. Then they're going home and having conversations about what? About what? Students that were enrolled where? To an institution that been busing students past the university to get to public school. Ain't nobody telling them they can dream about going to the University of Delaware. Unconsciously, we contribute to this. That's where that word comes in. It's implicit because we've been cultivated to do it over and over and over. If we stop for a second, it's real simple. We can challenge those implicit bias and be conscious to remove the bias. I said, I guarantee you, those kids are going to like you because they feel that you care about them. Now we got kids saying, oh, you think I can go to college? I just gave you constructs that totally theoretically influence why certain groups of people participate in crime. If you can't eat, you don't go to school, guess who's going to get robbed? And we all know with the housing crisis that crime doesn't have the same identity as it used to when you need to eat. So why don't we contribute by saying, hey, I understand these barriers and think differently about how to address them. So most of us, right, when I decided, because I am a scholar, I did research on the program, right? But most people would interview whom for the program? The community members, because they should be grateful that university students came into their homes, right, their neighborhoods. Guess who I interviewed? I interviewed the students. I want to see how it transformed your life. Because you're going to be the messengers of social justice with the jobs you take, with your career paths that you embark upon. You're going to see them at Walmart again. Maybe I just created a new president. Maybe she was in that class. Maybe she's the next person that runs the Department of Justice. She can think differently about grant funds that should be funneled to that community. I don't know. I felt like that was my responsibility. My first publication came from that work, outside the comfort zone of the classroom. Jones loved it. It's thinking differently about the same issues every day. Thirdly, diversity, the cuss word of the world right now. Aren't we too smart? Where diversity only includes race and gender. Oh my God, y'all think I wake up every day. You don't think I'm tired of talking about race? I mean, I go into some rooms and they just, oh, here he come again. You don't think I'm tired of it too? Sorry, Thomas. I know you're tired of it. Until something changes, I'm gonna wipe my eyes, get myself up in the morning, and keep having the conversation. Y'all can't get tired. Until we get an equitable society, y'all don't have the right to get tired. Sorry, Edward Jones. We got too many resources, too many higher education institutions in this country to insult each other by leaving and allowing race to be about race. Diversity to be about race and gender. My work challenges the individual that's going to get up to go into communities, to go into organizations, to go into corporations, to go into politics. It's an insult for us to leave the conversation of diversity around checking the box. We have enough. We have enough based on a physical identity. The best part about diversity is that you create the best qualified candidates. What do I mean by that? I'm the associate director for Delaware Space Grant, like we heard, where NASA gives out funds for undergraduate scholarships, summer research internships, and graduate fellowships nationwide. Every state has a pot of money. It's housed at a higher education institution. There's community colleges, there's technical colleges, and there's also corporations like DuPont, right? So there's an education component, and then there's a workforce component. One of the greatest programs I've ever seen before, right? I'm working on a PhD at the University of Delaware, and I meet these two brothers, two white dudes that are brothers. Just to be clear. And we create this bond over sports, and then we start going to eat together, then you find out you have more in common, and it's nothing but love. So they say, I want you to meet my father. He's a physicist here at the University of Delaware. He would like you. So we meet, we start going to lunch, taking me to Italian restaurants. I'm a poor graduate student, When you go eat one time, that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for that day. Can I get a to-go box, please? So he started paying for these outings, and I'm learning and sharing, and he's comfortable. He's from South Philly. So he starts to bring up these research identities, and he tells me about this space grant program. And he says, Chad, we don't have an outreach component, and we don't have what underrepresented minorities. I said, what do you mean? I said, wait a minute, you got technical community. I said, Delaware State is down the street. Look at all these beautiful brown and black faces on campus. Hold up, wait a minute. You got resources that you can't get to the folks? I'm out here trying to get my cousins to stop selling crack. No, seriously. I'm out here trying to get my cousins to stop selling crack. And they look at me and say, well, what you got for me in replace? You got a job? What you gonna do? Smart boy. What you got? Because people need to eat. And I'm like, oh man, here comes my dream. There's an institution with resources that needs to get it to marginalized groups. I love NASA for this. So based on the percentage of minorities in the state, to include women, a certain percentage of those funding sources has to go to underrepresented minorities. Go STEM world. That's a high standard, right? Delaware was about to be on probation because they couldn't do it. I begged them to let me go. They're like, you're criminologists, how you gonna help us? I said, There's that confirmation bias about what the S in science means. I said, think about it this way. You're in a different lab than me. You're a physicist, you're a chemist, biology, right? You're not trained on culture. You're not trained on institutional racism and the history of why this population doesn't realize that a flyer that's advertised for space grant, they can actually earn the funding. I said, I guarantee you, y'all put up flyers in the hallway and y'all send out emails, don't you? He's like, how did you know that? I said, because that's traditional way of the majority to advertise. Now you think those minority students that can't get bused, that's getting bused in the Newark, Delaware, you think their grandmama and them told them to go to that school and apply for funds? What you think they told them? Be quiet. Don't you cause no trouble. You go down there around no white people. Go to class and come home. That's cultural competency. That's a level of expertise that I can't ask for a physicist to have because you have not taken those classes. Instead of thinking about it in an intimidation way, let's do an interdisciplinary approach. Let me bring my expertise to you, and you bring your expertise to me, and now we can talk about that. Diversity at its best. So they, of course, they needed me to make them feel comfortable. So they invited me to the dog and pony show. I put the hair up in a ponytail, so it wasn't so overwhelming. I put on my red and blue tie, and I had on a blue suit that day. And before I left, I got 7 emails of confirmation for me to come join. I joined in 2012, and we broke records for applications and awardees. I go speak to students in our 7 schools in our consortium about why they deserve these opportunities. And I address those histories of grandmama, granddaddy telling you to be safe and not step outside your comfort zone. Hold me accountable. I told you I have 2 conversations y'all not gonna ask. And I train the faculty and the application reviewers to think differently around cultural competency when they review. I said, if you're gonna want me to stand up in front of them, I'm gonna be honest with them. Don't use me to check your box because you need a picture of me so NASA gets happy. And that really happened. When I sent a picture of him, NASA called him like within 10 minutes and said, I see you got one. Seriously. That's why I'm not offended. Because I know that's how the game is played. And I need to step in harm's way, what people will say, in order to benefit those kids. I'm a bridge builder. I need to connect both worlds. That's what that toolbox gives me. It gives me the right to say, hey, I have an expertise over here. I can talk to you to come get it. It gives me an expertise to talk to you to say you need to think differently about and give it. Because at the end of the day, you know we're not that tough, right? Like we really want it to happen. We're just afraid that it's going to cost us something that we aren't comfortable with. So NASA invites me to come speak at national conferences. They gave me 10 minutes. Then the next year they gave me 20. The next year they gave me 45. The next year they gave me an hour. STEM recruitment and beyond, the messenger is the medium. That's the title of the article that just got accepted to the Journal of STEM Education. I don't know, but I might be the first criminologist to publish in a STEM journal. We clap for that. The self-disclosure is about you self-reflecting and knowing where you sit through your perceptual lens, so you can address the implicit biases that you have to create different ways of navigating and contributing differently to society. That's what the self-disclosure is about. You have to be comfortable, and it's not easy. You're gonna have to challenge structural quality. Diversity. Wofford College. First day, practice. I'm going up there to take somebody's job, right? I'm going to play. I see this, what I call the idiot at the time, running into the wall doing the kickoff, right? I was like, yo, this dude is crazy. We go to lunch that day. I walk up to him and I say this, I said, man, something wrong with you, you crazy. He's like, freshman, who you think you're talking to? By this time I had walked off because I didn't think my mother named me freshman. So I didn't turn around. That's an ego to this, right? I feel very comfortable doing it. Anyway, as I come back out, he says, sit down, I want to have a conversation with you. He sit down, why did you call me? I explained to him why I called him that. 2 days later, we're in camp. I'm in the room at night, you know, the cafeteria closed, and then there's an Arby's bag. My roommate said, hey man, the white dude brought you some food. I said, white dude brought me some food. Man, put that in the trash. What's up? Go to practice that day, 2 days, come back in the hallway that night. Too much testosterone, so in another room. I come back, guess what's in the room? Arby's bag. All right, I gotta handle this dude now because it's something that's up with him. I go up to him the next day, man, what's your problem? So here's the fear, right? man, does he know I moved 8 times in 18 years? Does he know that I wouldn't be here without the scholarship? Does he know I ain't got no money to go nowhere and eat nothing at the cafeteria closed? He bet not know that about me. He bet not know my vulnerabilities. How dare him? So I'm offended. I'm afraid that he has found out the truth about me. So guess who has to pay for my fear? Someone that's loving me. Someone that understands the consequences of what it's like to go to two-a-day football camp and be hungry at night. That's all. So when I walked up to him, I was like, man, there's something up. What's up that you buying me food? He starts laughing. He's like, I know you gotta get hungry at night just like everybody else does. He said, also, nobody has ever walked up to me the way you have. I've been in school here for 2 years and made me feel that comfortable. This gentleman appears to be white, but he's Italian. Guess what he teaches me? NASDAQ, Dow Jones. Sit down. Let me bring my world to your world. I took my first trip to Boca Raton, Florida when I was 18 years old at spring and stayed a week for spring break. Guess who became my stockbroker? Kid from Columbia, South Carolina, moved 8 times in 18 years. No relationship with Pops, man. You see, there wasn't no stockbrokers around the corner. There were no financial investors in my world. He taught me that $1 has just as much value as 1,000 if you use it right. When I became an entrepreneur, he took 10 grand and turned it into 40. My daughter has 0 student loans now. She has a master's in counseling. She's a guidance counselor at Somerville High School. He changed the way I thought about money. You're in positions right now where you can be game changers for a lot of communities, a lot of individuals, a lot of people that come from neighborhoods and environments like me. I've been fortunate to live in diverse places and think differently and have diversity for real. That had nothing to do with skin color, did it? It had to do with a different way of thinking, and differences are your strengths. He brought what he did. He said, man, but what you're teaching me has nothing to do with money. His mother was from Italy, his dad was from Venezuela. So what do you think I taught him? I taught him how to navigate this crazy country we live in around those barriers that we keep putting up in front of each other. He thinks that carries more weight than that $40,000 he paid for me. Different way of thinking, differences are your strengths. I wasn't afraid to call him crazy, and it created the best friendship, one of the best friendships I have to this day. I don't see why the people in the room aren't in the same positions. The core values are saying that we gotta get comfortable having some difficult conversations. I read up on these are difficult conversations sometimes, but the outcomes, and it creates so much self-esteem, so much positive self-identity, and you walk home knowing that you just gave someone an asset that could change generations. Now, my daughter's expectations from her investment portfolio, her responsibilities to the community, her identity is totally different than mine was. And it was because someone that had an expertise like you have decided to teach me. Don't know what's over there until you go over there or get a relationship with someone from there. I know I can institute. I partner with Lynchburg City government to do an assets-based education and employment opportunity to disadvantage you. I use different terms whenever I interact with people that have been marginalized. That's why it's an asset space, and I'm pretty sure y'all know assets. So I changed the language. You ever been around a poor kid? You don't think they know they're poor? Yeah. Why do I need to remind them? So I use terms like disadvantaged. You've been disadvantaged. You can't control what neighborhood you live in. You can't control how much money mom and dad or grandma, how much make right now. So I'm going to bring a different empathy for your situation, and I'm going to get you to thinking more positive about your surroundings right now. And in doing this institute, I have a curriculum that I use based on these 4 constructs that increases the social emotional learning. My educators are upset with me because we talk about achievement gaps. We don't use achievement gap language. We use lack of resources. If a kid doesn't love himself or herself, I don't think you can get them to read a book. It's very difficult walking in a room when you don't think people want you to be there. And you think they're going to learn from you. It's very difficult walking in a room when you don't even have anything to eat that morning before you got there. So the sexy term for disadvantaged youth in this situation is when kids face their Generation 2 poverty program. So we had 60% of all our kids in our school district receiving free or reduced lunch. That was the only criteria that I advertised in order to receive applications for my program. I asked them to do things that I understand that would be a challenge for them, right? Like, go get your grades, write a letter of interest. But none of the GPA requirements, why would I do that knowing that there are lack of achievement resources in our school system? Well, how you gonna, because I know grades are only one identifier to being able to say, I got an education. I said, I bet you these kids got some informal education that I can make them realize they can use in your classrooms. I got a tool for that. Why don't we partner up and let's do it? Partner with Lynchburg City government, they gave me a van and a city employee that was a driver. Why did I need that? What's the #1 barrier for poverty? Oh, we gave him a chance to get a job, but he can't get to work on time. No, I bet he can't. He just came home in a felony, he don't have no driver's license and or a car. I don't need my ego to be so big when I understand that's a barrier. You have resources. Pay $9 more an hour for someone to work on Saturday. They go pick up my babies, please. So now they can't use that as an excuse, can they? What about food? Second barrier. Power of the dinner table. We sat down and we ate every morning together before I started doing instruction. Why? I had to earn their trust. You sit down at your dinner tables, think about the conversations you have with your loved ones. So tell me what's going on this week in school, or what happened today in school. Unconsciously, I was gaining their trust. I cared about what happened all week. Frito-Lay partnered up with me, gave me a bunch of potato chips. I know it wasn't the healthiest thing. So I gave to-go bags of food, sandwiches, pizza. I know when they met with Dr. Starks, they got 2 meals. That made me feel good. I addressed the barriers that we know that they are facing. Life skills. Guess what course I had? Financial literacy. I partnered with the local community bank, credit union. They came and did a 3-hour session. I had 80% of your salary. Well, I'm jumping ahead. A lot of my families didn't even have bank accounts. So I made sure that they had to get the experience of walking in a bank and opening up a bank account. You should have seen the smiles on those kids' faces when they came back to tell me about what it was like walking in a bank. Small stuff that you know exists. They needed $5 just to open the account. 80% goes into your checking account, 20% goes into a savings account. That was my rule with the bank. If you're gonna partner with me, we need to teach them what it looks like when you get money, how to save based on your work ethic. Now, how long do you think that savings account lasts? I did say Generation 2 poverty kids, right? So uncle needed that debit card, mama needed that money to help pay the rent, they needed to put food on the table, but it was my responsibility to introduce it to them. It was mine. I felt good about that. I took that responsibility on. 99% of my kids got jobs. Lynchburg City employees. They became government employees over the summer. Some made $8, $9 an hour as a lifeguard. They got $200 scholarships to get to training. Y'all been to college, know how much money you can make as a lifeguard while you're in college? We just set them on a different path of economic viability. Just did it. If they work long enough, maybe they can become employees, right? 16-year-olds, you work in the summer, Parks and Rec. Maybe at 18, if you aren't ready for higher education, guess what you can walk into? Maybe you become a full-time city employee for local government. Maybe you get health benefits now. Maybe you get to meet some of you intelligent people and talk about what financial investment looks like. There's a population I think we're missing out on. There's a population that I think we're missing out on. I don't know what portfolios are, but I know what assets are. And I know these babies are solutions to the problems that we've been talking about for a very long time. The last one is respect. How you see yourself and others in high regard. Should have had a picture of it, but mine constructs overlap each other for a purpose, and the definitions you'll see the word previously written in each other, except for respect. Because I say if you understand identity, understand culture, understand diversity, then guess what comes organically? For difference. So that way you don't have to go have an initiative to get women involved. You don't have to go have an initiative to say we need more people of color. Because your consciousness is already thinking about difference from the first three constructs. So we can move past this, and Dr. Starks can talk himself out of a career and be somewhere else doing something else. I just want you to work with me a little bit around the self-reflection. What have I been given, right, that I need to face every day? So real life applications, ethic of care. Hardest thing to do in society is the what? Is to care. Because once you care about something, you got to change your pronouns. It's no longer about I or me. You're going to think about those, they, them first. It's hard to really care. I don't mean care as saying, yeah, having one conversation. I mean taking your skills and putting yourself in a position to change the structure that we know continues to create barriers. I need you. I need you all to be messengers of social justice. As good or bad as we think I am, I can't be in every place. I need you at home, changing your conversations with your spouse, with your partners, with your uncles, with your aunts, with your kids. That's what those leave behinds are. My work is to create messengers of social justice. I need you to do it when you go back to your respective environments today. It's nice to have these conversations, but we don't want a cosmopolitan canopy, right? We don't want to get all excited in the room. Yeah, I was feeling the speaker, it was great, and then when we walk out, we walk right back into our isms. I'm asking you to join me on this journey. Let's change the way we think about it. Let's change the way we interact with each other. Let's be bridge builders together to create a more loving society. Before I go, I want you to hold up the leave behind that you chose. Now that we have these conversations around bias and implicit bias, I want you to consciously think about why you chose the one you did. Did that one make you feel like you? Did that one make you more comfortable? Did that one gender? Was it race? Or did you just grab the one that was closest to your seat? Thank you all for letting me share. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully I've shown my gratitude, my purpose of being here, and the appreciation of giving me a microphone and giving me a platform to come share something that is very important to me called life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stark. We really appreciate your knowledge, your information shared here, and our great culture here at Everett. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. I think now we're going to our next break.